All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning. How you doing? Need a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Duge. All those please vote. Okay. Item 4 is approval of the minutes dated December 2nd, 2019. I need a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Commissioner Sauger, supported by Commissioner Haw. Please vote. Thank you. Item 5 is public participation. Members of the public have 5 minutes to speak in any subject that is on the agenda in the first part. And then there's public participation following the meeting on any subject that you wish to talk about. Something that maybe is not on the agenda that you want to come in to talk about that's not on the agenda. So with that, we'll start public participation. You have 5 minutes to speak. State your name and address for the record.
My name is John Shapka. Address is 39241 Canterbury Drive, Harrison Township. I'm Corporation Counsel from Macomb County. I was asked by the board to address one issue very briefly at public participation. That is a recent confusion about the Refugee Resettlement project, which is being sponsored by the Trump White House. Just to clear up the confusion, there is nothing in that project or the executive's communications regarding that project that pertain to illegal aliens. It pertains only to legal admitted refugees. Refugee is just one of many, many immigration statuses. Each immigration status has its own list of criteria to be met. And as for refugees, it's about a 2-year process. I want to remind everyone that local governments, the states, the counties, the townships, the cities, have absolutely no authority whatsoever under law to reject or deny anyone the right to come here and live here. That issue was settled by the U.S. Supreme Court about 100 years ago, 1920, where the Supreme Court found a fundamental right. And fundamental rights are those rights that are inalienable. We are endowed with them by our Creator. But a fundamental right to live anywhere in this nation you want to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the same. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to speak, and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Martin Manna, 3601 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I also want to just speak quickly on the refugee resettlement issue. I am the president of the Chaldean Community Foundation in Sterling Heights. We've helped with a lot of new American acculturation, and I just wanted to help dispel some of the negative stereotypes and phobias that exist about immigrants and refugees. Since 2007, some 35,000 Chaldean Iraqi refugees have made their way to Michigan. Most of them have resettled to Macomb County like their predecessors from other immigrant communities, whether it be Polish or Italian. They came here because of religious persecution. Iraq at one point was 1.5 million Christians. It's fewer than 200,000 today. A lot of that had to do with unfortunate U.S. policy in the region. The community also suffered a genocide, and that genocide was at the hands of the Islamic State, and prior to that it was other unfortunate circumstances with other parties. And so they made their way to any country willing to accept them, the U.S. as being one of them. There hasn't been much refugee flow over the last couple years, but the community has resettled in Macomb County. They're job creators. They've done phenomenally. They contribute about $11 billion. Our community, 160,000 here just in the state of Michigan, contributing $11 billion to the economy. And so I want to thank Macomb County. I have the ability to work with many different counties throughout the state. This is a very welcoming county led by the county executive and the wonderful commissioners here. That they are supportive of legal refugee flow and immigration. So for those that aren't aware, refugees come to the United States legally. They're granted asylum. They get 8 months worth of federal assistance, and then they're on their own. It's not a one in which they are here at the liberty to take from the government. Our facility also does a lot of job placement and has been very active in supporting people of all the different communities. More than 35,000 people come to our facility. And so I just wanted to reiterate the great work being done by the county and appreciate the opportunity to make some comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, this will be for any issue on the agenda for today, correct?
Yes, on the agenda. Yes,
Okay. My name is Thomas Smith. My address,
please.
46586 Heathmore, Chesterfield Township. Okay. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. My name is Thomas Smith. I'm not coming here to lecture you about the Second Amendment. There is nothing else that is very important. There is something else that is very important being threatened in the United States by red flag laws and their enforcement. The 5th and 14th Amendments of the Constitution state that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law by the federal government or state governments. These amendments require that any government must follow certain procedures to ensure due process. Former Chief Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, Henry Friendly, determined that there were multiple important procedures for due process. I wish to bring attention to a few of those procedures and how they interact with red flag laws. First, individuals must be given, and I quote, notice of the proposed action and the grounds asserted for it. Red flag actions, as seen in other states, most often do not provide the accused individual with proper notice of the action. Over 98% of all red flag actions are approved with a lower burden of proof than a search warrant. In the state of Utah, 60% of all red flag actions were approved by a judge in less than 3 minutes. These easily approved actions were often carried out within 24 hours. These 24-hour red flag actions approved quickly are hardly adequate notice. An accused individual's first meeting with police in their home might be the only notice they ever receive. This is normal in states with red flag laws. Red flag laws go against another procedure. Accused individuals must be given, and I quote, an opportunity to present reasons why the proposed action should not be taken. For clarity, let me repeat with emphasis. Accused individuals must be given an opportunity to present reasons why the proposed action should not be taken. Should not. That is, accused individuals must be given the opportunity before the red flag actions have taken place and their firearms seized to defend themselves. Red flag laws are ripe for abuse and can be used as a tool by people with ill intentions, especially by those motivated to achieve power over others. They could be ex-relationships, co-workers, even police officers unfit to wear the badge, or in my case, unchristian, vindictive, and extremely jealous blood relatives who have already have a report with the Clinton Township Police Department against them for assaulting my mother. We all desire a safe community for everyone here in Macomb County, and that safety includes due process protections against false claims that could result in the seizure of private personal property by the state. These laws can be used in a discriminatory manner. Minority firearm owners do not need another reason to be fearful of police interactions. Macomb County surely does not want online arguments to lead to false accusations with serious, irreversible, and permanent life-changing consequences. It doesn't matter if you own firearms or not. Enforcement of red flag laws in Macomb County, Michigan do not just trample on the Second Amendment. They pose a serious threat to the very ideal of due process,
Sir, you have 1 minute.
as enshrined in the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution. That is the same Constitution you have all sworn to uphold. I urge the Macomb County Board of Commissioners to declare Macomb County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. This action would demonstrate to our community that our local government cares for due process for every individual in the event that our state or federal government ever pass a red flag law. At this time, I'd like to thank my friend Jeremy Hayden, couldn't be here this afternoon. A big thank you to my grandfather, Pete Menino, for the inspiration. Thank you, and I yield my remaining time to the next gentleman.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. You have, state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Wilson, and I live at 372 North Bailey Street in Romeo, Michigan. I'm here requesting to address your Resolution 2020-4311 declaring Macomb County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. I'm a registered nurse, retired. My husband is retired from corrections. We have no quarrel with the Second Amendment. In fact, I feel safer because he knows how guns work and we have them in the house. And if we ever had to defend ourselves, I take comfort from knowing that we have that there. The Constitution is a brilliant document, and the Second Amendment really is something that we all need to uphold. But I have concern with how this resolution has been written by you, and I hope that you'll take this concern to heart and maybe make some edits before you put it into place. The preamble to the Constitution talks about the fact that the intention behind that brilliant document was to try and make sure that we were supporting the greater good. And in many instances, that's exactly what all of us are trying to do all the time. Unfortunately, though, in 2004, when the semi-automatic rifles came back on the street because that legislation was able to sundown in 2004, those types of military weapons that are so capable of killing so many so quickly became more widely available in our country. And unfortunately, whether it's in the hands of a bad guy, a terrorist, or some teenager with, a grudge and a death wish, when those types of weapons find their way into society, terrible things happen. We are not supporting the greater good by having those available. We are, in fact, making ourselves more unsafe. And unfortunately, the way that this resolution has been written currently, it makes no distinction as far as the types of firearms that would be covered. Technically, those types of semi-automatic weapons would be included in any types of protection, and if cooler minds prevail ultimately and somebody finds a way to keep us safe from those, I would hate to think that Macomb County would be in opposition to enforcement or protecting its citizens from those things. So I would hope that you would take a look at this, maybe try and clarify the distinctions of what sorts of weapons are encompassed in it, and maybe think twice about whether or not this is the right time to do this. Because if we really are here for the greater good, then think about those assault weapons and whether we want to bake this in the way that it's written. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Next person. Ma'am, you have 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record, Ms. Stephenson.
Ruthie Stephenson, 69 Bain Street. I commend you, gentlemen and ladies, for allowing us to come forth to speak on this issue of refugee resettlement. As a lifelong resident of Macomb County, I was born and raised here in that quaint village called New Haven, where I grew up with Germans, Jewish, Polish, Asians, Hispanics, Indians, every culture you could think of. And we learned to be on one accord. We all took care of each other. And to recognize that when I look at each one of us, everybody sitting in this room had ancestors that came from somewhere else. You either came by choice, you came by slavery, or you came wanting for a better life. And as I tell a lot of people, the way the stopgap measure goes now is that people are trying to keep people out of this country. I understand your fears, but if that's the point, we need to take down the Statue of Liberty because it's not meeting what it said that it was going to do. When I look at even my life, my dad, on my dad's side of the family, I'm Scottish, Irish, Black, and Indian. On my mom's side, I'm German, Black, and Indian. So to say that my relatives, whether they came of free will, choice, or slavery, we're still one country. And we need to recognize that. I worked the 2000 census, the 2010 census. Macomb County, when we did a follow-up meeting, was recognized as the most racially polarized, divided county in all of these United States. We don't want to go that way when we want to keep people out of this country, everybody out of this county. Everybody that comes here are not criminals. They're coming for a better life, a new way of doing things. And they're not always coming in need. They have jobs. They have, you know, careers and things like that. And we need to know how to interact and talk with one another. As past president of Macomb County NAACP, I work with every nationality basically in Macomb County: the Bangladesh, the Hispanic, the Italians, every group that you can think of. We all have issues and we all need to come together on one accord. And I just have to agree with this, that, you know, people are looking for a better, safe place to live, not to go against one another.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, officers, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Clift. I live at 24067 Virginia Drive over in the south end of Warren. I normally don't come to these kind of things. I'm kind of involved with things going on in my local city, Warren, but it popped up a couple of days ago that you were bringing a 2A sanctuary on the agenda today, so I felt it important just to come and give my 2 cents worth. I'm in my mid-50s. I'm a longtime United States Army veteran. Seen a lot of crazy things, did a lot of crazy things. I'm a 2A proponent. I believe in people being responsible ultimately for their own well-being and safety, period. When seconds counts, police are minutes away. I've never had to draw my firearm in defense of myself or anybody else, and I hope that I never have to. But that being said, I still carry every day, and I'm going to tell you, I'm damn uncomfortable being in here without it today. I carry every day. I take it with me everywhere that I'm allowed to take it. In places that I'm not allowed to take it, I sometimes think twice whether I really want to go there or not. And some people might say, why? And I say, well, just review some of the highlights in the news over the last 10 or 15 years. And you'll find that a lot of the places where people aren't supposed to have them, that's where your lunatic shows up and he wants to do a great amount of harm in a short period of time. I probably spend $1,500 to $2,000 a year on range time and ammunition to practice. I hope to never have to do it, but I spend sometimes up to $2,000 a year on range time and ammo just to practice. I said it twice because I wanted you to make sure to understand what I was saying. The vast majority of people who are like-minded to myself, we feel the same way. I go with groups, sometimes 10 guys and ladies. We'll go to the range and we'll spend half a day and we'll practice. So when that time does come, when you're getting carjacked in a parking lot, or one of your kids are getting knocked down at a park, or somebody over here has something drastic happening and I'm standing 20 feet away, if you're not capable of doing it, I'll do it. And I'll take care of it and I'll stop the threat. Because that's what I practice and that's what I train for. I took an oath too back in 1982 to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I'm just going to repeat a few words from that document for you to consider here this evening. And those words are, shall not be infringed. And I hear people talk about training, and I hear people talk about wanting to be safe, and I hear people talk about the rate of fire on some weapons. If you've got people in the room that are trained and able to deal with the threat. I don't care if you got a 100-round drum magazine on an AR. You pull that weapon out and start to do something bad, and I'm standing there, you ain't getting very far. And a lot of people that are like-minded to myself feel the same way. For the last 2 generations, we've taught our children guns are terrible, guns are bad, guns are evil. Now, I don't want you guys to show your age, but I know some of you guys and maybe gals sitting right at this table may have got to play with 22 rifles in high school and went through a safety class. That stuff's all gone now. Now everybody's in the mindset that it's horrible and it's dangerous. The bad guy don't feel that way. He runs around emboldened. And he runs around emboldened because he knows, chances are, when he gets ready to do something that he probably shouldn't be doing to you, you're not going to be able to react appropriately. I stand on the position of, hey, give me a tax break. Let me send my receipts in for my range time and my ammunition and my weapons purchases, and give me an incentive to continue on training and being ready for the inevitable should it happen. Well, not the inevitable, but for the bad should it ever happen. And extend it to everybody else and give them an opportunity and incentivize it. Let's not disenfranchise a group of people that are capable and willing to stand up when standing needs to be done. And let's not vilify those who take their craft seriously in the hopes that they never have to use it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you for... Yes, thank you. I will take considerably less than 5 minutes. My name is Carmi Finn. I live at 32631 Desmond Drive in Warren. I am here also to speak on the Sanctuary County resolution. We know that these Second Amendment sanctuary statements do not have the force of law. So passing this pointless resolution does not accomplish anything to affect anyone's Second Amendment rights. Here's what passing this resolution would actually do. It would suggest that laws enacted by our legislature are, or may be, unconstitutional, despite certain knowledge that this is not the case, resulting in citizens' confusion about our laws and distrust of the legal system. It would require Macomb County officials to be the interpreters of U.S. and Michigan constitutional law. It would undermine confidence in the Macomb County Sheriff's Department. The department needs public trust to work effectively. That confidence and trust that our Sheriff's Department currently enjoys will be eroded if residents doubt whether county officers will enforce Michigan's laws. Passage of this resolution will not benefit any of Macomb County's residents. I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello?
Hi, my name is Pam Leadline. I live at 17961 Birch Drive, Macomb Township. And I'm speaking to express my concern that the Macomb County Board of Commissioners is considering making Macomb County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. If I understand this correctly, such a resolution would prohibit law enforcement from enforcing laws that are meant to provide a safer environment for our citizens. I do not believe that such laws violate the Second Amendment. Law-abiding citizens retain their rights to bear arms. Military-style weapons are designed for use in a war zone, not for home protection. High-capacity magazines allow a shooter to rapidly kill people in a mass murder. Red flag laws, with due process, allow a court to decide if a person is a threat to self or others. These laws save lives. Reports of gun violence dominate the news. A shooting in a CVS parking lot, a murder-suicide in a domestic violence situation, a shooting at a gas station on Hall Road, an armed robbery at an AT&T store in Sterling Heights, road rage incidents involving shots fired or gun pointed. Macomb County should be looking at ways to prevent further gun violence, not encouraging non-enforcement of existing laws. Students in Macomb County are subjected to traumatizing active shooter drills as school districts prepare them for response to a possible mass shooting. Is Macomb County going to send the message to these children that they are going to ignore laws that are meant to protect them? Please consider the safety of the citizens of Macomb County before passing such a resolution. And it's the job of the Supreme Court of the United States, not Macomb County, to determine which laws are unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll sign this in just a moment. Thank you, everybody, for giving us an opportunity to speak in front of the Board of Commissioners. My name is Mark Hartzell. I live at 18630 Bittersweet in Fraser. I am a proponent of the Second Amendment. I fully support the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution. As others have stated, these military-style weapons. Well, the AR-15 is not used in any military in the world, anywhere. Yes, there are some that look similar to it. There are some that function similar to it, but they are not assault weapons. Assault weapons have been banned since 1937. Full automatic weapons have not been available to the general public in almost 100 years. Passing unconstitutional laws that strip my rights to protect myself, my family, and those in this room are repugnant to the Constitution and therefore invalid. It is stated in the Michigan Constitution, every person has a right to keep and bear arms for the defense of himself and the state. Again, including everyone in this room. Whether I agree with your political views, your personal views or not. If I'm standing behind you in a store and somebody comes in with a gun and starts shooting, I'll do my damnedest to protect myself and you. A Second Amendment sanctuary does not state that we're just going to allow people to roam the streets with guns wherever they want, but it's time that we hold the people accountable for their own actions. Having a firearm does not make me a criminal. Passing further laws that restrict my ability to use my Second Amendment rights to protect myself, my family, and my community does nothing to stop criminals. Ban guns. Look at the United Kingdom. Private citizens are not allowed to own firearms. Yes, statistically, shootings have gone down, but the rates of other types of crime, knifings, stabbings, clubbings, have skyrocketed. It's asinine to believe that passing further restrictions on the rights of law-abiding citizens is going to make anybody safer. In fact, I believe it would jeopardize my life. By passing laws that further restrict those rights and abilities, all it does is make it a field day for criminals who don't obey the laws anyways to further their craft and cause more problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Again, you have 5 minutes to speak on any subject on the agenda, and you have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Christie Hay. I live at 62701 Crimson Boulevard, Washington, Michigan. I have exchanged emails with Commissioner Brown. He is my representative here on this board. And the email that he sent, I was interested in the way that he phrased it, that he admitted that, I'm going to quote it directly, it does not have the effect of law, nor does it call for the repeal or disregard of any law currently in place. So this is an entirely symbolic vote, and yet it sends a message that possibly, and I'm glad in the article in the Detroit News that the sheriff from Macomb County is not supportive of this law and says that there's no practical effect for it whatsoever, and he will not enforce any law based on this resolution. So that is a relief to us, because this resolution sends a message that laws won't be enforced, that you are considering not asking for the laws to be enforced. To conclude his email, Commissioner Brown stated that the resolution gave voice to the majority who oppose these views that he alluded to regarding gun confiscation and bans. There are no laws being proposed right now in the Michigan legislature regarding banning any particular weapon. And in terms of confiscation regarding the red flag law, if you wanted to call that confiscation, has currently proposed in Michigan, has a strong due process. It requires a hearing within 14 days. The person is entitled to represent him or herself and bring a lawyer for it, and they're entitled to appeal during the year that the red flag law removal of their guns are in force. So there is due process. There is strong protections for the person whose property is being removed, and it is something that will help people who are in a crisis, who will help save lives if somebody is suicidal, who will help, if you know of a threat, help remove guns from people who are a danger to themselves or others. It is something that has been passed in several states, indeed in Indiana, and our Vice President Mike Pence has spoken up in favor. I believe it was passed in Indiana while he was governor of Indiana. So these are not wild and crazy laws. These do not have no due process, and they are supported by Republicans at the highest levels of our government. We're here to discuss, Moms Demand Action isn't here to take away your guns. We're here to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have guns. Michigan does not require somebody who has been convicted of domestic violence or has a personal protection order against them to give up their guns, to surrender their guns. If that's considered confiscation, I guess, yes, I would be in favor of confiscating guns from somebody who has a conviction for violence. People die. A woman is 5 times more likely to die of violence if her abuser has a gun in the home. A red flag law would help with that. If this is considered confiscation, I am for it. I don't want guns in the hands of domestic abusers who have been convicted or have a PPO. Federal law is already in place for people to not have, for somebody convicted of domestic violence to give up their guns. The Lautenberg Amendment was passed in 1996. However, the state of Michigan does not enforce that because it is a federal law and it can only be enforced by federal agents unless we choose to. So Moms Demand Action's priority for this year is to do that, to get the Lautenberg Amendment and to take guns away from people who don't have, who shouldn't have them in the first place because they've been convicted of violence. So in case somebody was going to bring it up, that would show you the difference between this resolution that you're proposing and the immigration statute. Immigration is a federal thing. That's why some cities pass an immigration resolution like the one you're proposing as a Second Amendment one. We already don't enforce federal law on guns. And I think Michigan can pass regulations and laws that will save lives. 92% of Americans support background checks, including 72% of NRA members. I'm happy to provide you with the citations from these studies later if you would like. I'm happy to answer any further questions. I've got a lot of statistics behind this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carol Chi, and I live at 35325 Moravian in Sterling Heights. And I'm also here to talk about Resolution 2020-4311. I'm a retired public school teacher. I underwent active shooter drills before I retired 9.5 years ago in a middle school, in an elementary school, mostly in the middle school, where I taught most of the time. And it was nerve-wracking. A lot of questions from the kids. It was just difficult to do. I was shocked to hear about this resolution. It's shocking and unnecessary. This resolution gives a bad perception of Macomb County to the rest of the world. And perception is everything. Perception is reality. It makes the county look harsher. We don't need that. We want to be welcoming. We want to be looked at proudly, fondly, positively as a welcoming place. We want to increase the population here, have more jobs here, have more people working here, living here, and peacefully, which they will do. We want people to come here. We want to increase friendship in our neighborhoods, brotherhood, safety, neighborliness. The USA has more guns than people in the entire country. And still, we have more mass shootings, more suicides, lots of veterans committing suicides, lots of teenagers committing suicides, lots of people in general, lots of domestic violence, suicide, murder, murder-suicide. And we have accidental killings of 2-year-olds, of 1-year-olds, of babies, of children, of adults, of teenagers, a lot. We have to remember what FDR said. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. We have more guns than people in this country. Then why don't those guns, why are those people with the guns not preventing all these mass murders that are occurring all across the nation in schools? I'm just thankful that it didn't happen in the schools that I taught in. I'm thankful. So just remember what FDR said. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Let's not be so afraid. Let's increase the friendship and neighborliness in our neighborhoods. It's up to all of us to do that. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else? I remind everyone to please keep your comments. Everyone shows respect when they speak. No verbal comments when they speak, please. Thank you. You have 5 minutes, ma'am. You state your name and address for the record.
I'm Katie Kramer. I live at 21888 Bellwood Drive. I'm a high school student, and I would like to talk to you guys about the Second Amendment sanctuary. I go to the biggest populated high school in Michigan, Dakota High School, and last year we had to start doing active shooter drills to prepare us for the highly realistic, terrifying probability that we could be part of a school shooting. And it's from the perspective of a teenager and from the perspective of a student who's had to go through those. They are traumatizing and frightening and remind us every day that we are not 100% safe every time I go to school. And I so desperately don't want to be part of another school shooting statistic. And I think that red flag laws would keep me safe in my school. They would make it so that every day I could go to school and not have to worry about that. But I do every single day. And so passing this Second Amendment sanctuary would take away my confidence that I would be safe going to school, and it would take away my confidence that one of my classmates could get easier access to a gun or get easier access to enter the school with that gun. So please don't let me be part of another statistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Hamilton, and I reside at 41583 Clinton Township, Michigan. And the reason I'm here is I'm for the sanctuary, for the Second Amendment. I believe in our constitutional rights. I am a gun owner. I own an AR-15, an AR-20, a revolver, and a shotgun. I love shooting. I go to the shooting range quite often. I have never hurt anyone, and I don't know anyone that is a member of the NRA that has ever committed a crime with a gun. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA, as a matter of fact. Now, with what everybody is saying, there's always a way of looking at things when you turn the page and you see that the people that commit crimes with guns would have committed it with a knife, with a hammer, with any other object. Guns do not kill people. People kill people. And that's what you have to keep in mind. And as far as students being afraid at schools, I remember back in the 1950s and 60s when kids were taught the safety use of guns. Nobody had a fear of guns, and we really should go back to that part of time. We need this resolution to go through. We need a sanctuary for gun owners like me, legal abiding citizens who've never committed a crime. I will never give up my guns, no matter what anyone says. I protect myself and my home with my guns. That's the way I see it. And I like to shoot. I like to go to the shooting range. I see nothing wrong with that. And I'm not going to give up my AR-15 because someone says it's an assault rifle when it hasn't been used in any war. No military uses it. It doesn't make any sense to me. The people that are saying these things have never owned a gun, is my opinion. And just have a thing where they should let other people who want to own a gun let them. And if we need a sanctuary city because of what they're doing in Virginia, we need it. We need a safeguard. The Constitution has to be upheld. The Constitution was written for our forefathers for a reason. You know, everyone wants to disarm Americans, but what is the reason they want to take our guns away? Is it because the reason they want to take them away is for what we would shoot them for, because of what they want to do to us? You got to look at that part too. You know, the Constitution was written and should be held up, and we need this to be a sanctuary county for guns. The Second Amendment is a great amendment, just like the First Amendment. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I'll use part of my time to sign the sheet. I haven't signed it yet.
Right. We'll give you the time.
It's all right, I don't need it all. My name is Mark Fortin. I live in Chesterfield Township, 48143 Mallard Drive. I'm a veteran, and I'm an advocate for our Constitution, the whole thing. You know, this thing is brought up because of what's going on in Virginia. We have a governor in Virginia running amok, and the same thing can happen anywhere. There are too many politicians who have been eroding our rights, all of them, including our Second Amendment rights. The Constitution is clear, okay? There's some things we don't need a Supreme Court for, right? We have the right to freedom of speech. I don't care if my speech accidentally offends someone. Many people have said things that offend me. It's their right, okay? I have the right to worship God or not worship God anywhere I please, anyhow I please, all right? As long and naturally as I'm not saying things like, if you don't believe like me, I'm going to kill you. You know, that kind of a religion I have nothing to do with. But if I'm not interfering with anyone else, I have the right to go to a Catholic church, any Protestant church, Unitarian, whatever. The Second Amendment of the Constitution was not for deer hunting. It was not for plinking or going to the range. It was to make the people of the United States more powerful than their government, so that the government could not override the Constitution of the United States. And we see that every day, especially the last few years. We have American citizens who have no constitutional protections at all, no protections being accused. We see it in Washington, D.C., everywhere else. We see FISA courts that should be banned. There is no way in a FISA court for an innocent person or any person to defend themselves in any way, shape, or form. No, you can get some judge to go and do it, anything he dang well pleases. The FBI and everybody else has been using that stuff. I think we should pass this thing. I know that it's largely symbolic, but our elected officials have got to understand that the American people will not and are not going to give up their guns. It doesn't matter if a gun is semi-automatic or not. The fact is we have issues in the schools, and our poor kids are going through this because we will not take away that gun-free zone garbage that is a magnet to idiots, all right? Almost everything that's ever happened, if you research it, it's a gun-free zone, almost all of them. It's an advertisement to people who would do terrible harm that this place is safe. I can come in here and I can do all I want. Now you start taking veterans or somebody else and you just take away the gun-free zones and just tell people, I don't know. We might have somebody there protecting the kids, we might not. But it's no longer a gun-free zone, okay? That lady that just spoke, she's got her picking up her grandkid at school. She don't have to leave her gun in the car. She can go ahead and pick up her grandkid at school. You'll stop all this crap. But see, we don't want to stop. We don't want to punish criminals. We don't want to do this stuff because we're using it as fuel to disarm the American people. And that is what's going on here. And we got to come and realize as a community we're going to defend each other or we're not. So I am for this Second Amendment thing. Thank you for letting me speak.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on any item on the agenda? Please come ahead. Again, you have 5 minutes. State your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Denny Middleton. I live in Detroit, but I work in Macomb County. Okay. So as I said, my name is Denny Middleton. I'm the Communities Coordinator for Welcoming Michigan. We are a project of the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center and a member of Welcoming America. We are proud to partner with Macomb County and to build a more inclusive and welcoming community for all residents who call Macomb County home. To achieve this goal, we enjoy working with many residents, community organizations, and local governments across the county. I am here today to express our support for the county's recent decision to continue to welcome and resettle refugees. I understand the Commission is taking no action regarding this issue today, but I wanted to let you know how much we and our partners have appreciated the county's support for refugee resettlement over the past several decades. In December, County Executive Hackle sent a letter to Secretary Pompeo indicating the county's consent to continue refugee resettlement. This consent letter is in response to a federal executive order issued in September 2019, which placed a new requirement on state and county governments to indicate their willingness to continue refugee resettlement in local communities. A refugee is a person forced to flee their home country to escape war, violence, or persecution. The refugee resettlement process includes a careful selection by governments for purposes of lawful admission of the most vulnerable persons who can neither return to their home country nor live in safety in neighboring host countries. The process is lengthy and involves security screenings by several federal departments. Less than 1% of the world's refugees are approved for resettlement in another country. The United States and Macomb County have long histories of welcoming refugees and successful integration into local communities. And we have had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know the refugee families who have made Macomb their home. For example, the student award winner at our Breakfast of Nations event last year faced a harrowing journey coming from Iraq with her family and is now excelling in her classes and volunteers to help others at her school. And there are many other stories like this. We are proud that Macomb County, Sterling Heights, and Clinton Township are part of the national network of welcoming cities and counties, committed to creating an inclusive environment for newcomers, where everyone feels welcome, including immigrants and refugees. This is important in Macomb County, where 11% of residents are foreign-born, and most residents can trace their ancestry to other countries. Macomb County is also home to many organizations led by and serving immigrants of all backgrounds. Additionally, Macomb County has a long history of welcoming refugees, including refugees from Iraq, Bosnia, and Vietnam. These new residents have gone on to become business owners, volunteers, and valued members of our local communities. We live in the same neighborhoods, our kids go to school together, and our families share the same hopes and dreams. So we thank Executive Hackle for continuing the county's support for refugee resettlement and for their partnership over the years. We look forward to seeing continued welcoming efforts in communities across the county so that both US-born and immigrant community members can experience equity and belonging where they live, work, and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Please come up.
My name is Moira Smith. I live in Sterling Heights. I want to thank the young lady who just spoke. She has the right to speak, but she is not from our area. And she does have the right to speak, but she is not representing Macomb County. Macomb County cannot accept any more refugees. We are a small county. We have a large enough population as it is. We are expanding our density in living. Our roads are overwhelmed. Our schools are overwhelmed. We are providing special services for all kinds of children with special needs. And we need to take care of our own children. Taking care of people that are not going to be able to take care of themselves is causing a great strain on our culture and our economy. And I feel very strongly about this. We are a country of individuals, and we are eroding that by accepting people that will not become Americans. They are staying in enclaves. They are subsidized by the taxpayers. There is no intention of a refugee who is helpless. God bless them. They are people that are in need and in trouble. But we have to take care of our own people. We are losing our country. This is very serious. We're more than willing to give up our rights to carry guns. And our elected officials are not looking out for us. Mr. Hackle, with this letter to Secretary Pompeo, did not consult with the voters and taxpayers in Macomb County. He is accountable to us. There were no meetings. There was no notification. Last week there was a meeting at Sterling Heights City Council. I had no idea what was going on. There was nothing on our agenda, but the young lady who just spoke was there, along with about 20 other people who were not from our community. They were obviously called by the City Council in Sterling Heights, and I think there were 1 or 2 people that did speak up. At the Sterling Heights level, I have to say, frankly, I give up, because and they attacked 2 people, 2 citizens, 2 taxpayers in Sterling Heights, and called them haters. I think that is absolutely deplorable of our elected officials to have such a condescending attitude toward our own citizens. Who do you represent? Who votes for you? Who pays for the taxes? That's all I have to say, but I hope you are listening to us, and please do not pass this resolution to welcome more people that we cannot handle in our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Please step forward and
Good afternoon.
Yes.
My name is Vesna Čizmić. I live in Sterling Heights in 39113 Ladrone Avenue, and I'm here in a double role as a citizen of Macomb County and also as a refugee from Bosnia who was resettled 25 years ago. And my third role is actually I'm a program manager at Samaritas, Refugee Resettlement and Employment Services. So I will give you my input. When I was resettled here with my family 25 years ago, I came to Warren, and after that we purchased house in Sterling Heights. We are business owners, we are highly educated, our kids are highly educated. We are surrounded with our neighbors, and we don't have any issue. So I'm wondering who has issue with me? You know, am I dangerous for somebody? Did I do any crime? So why wouldn't you let people like me to resettle in this country? Another thing is working professionally with refugees, you don't see criminals among refugees. If somebody is waiting 10 or 20 years to be resettled, living in a refugee camp, the last thing that they have on their mind is to do some crime. Check statistics. How many people have been, how many refugees have been deported from this country? How many of them did any crime? Not many. Employment rate, and I work as a program manager in Samaritas. Employment rate within the first 6 months is 80%, which means that individuals that comes here with a small bag of personal belonging or nothing is able to start working and get of the public assistance within 6 months. I think that's something great. I went to many meetings at the local DHHS offices, and how many Americans are on a public assistance. I also work as a program manager in a school impact program at Samaritas, which helps kids to adjust better in schools. And I will tell you that statistics are amazing. Kids are passing grades. They're not being held back in the class. Also, they're helping each other. Look at the businesses that are growing around us. I will tell you, lady that mentioned crowd on our streets. Crowd on our streets are because Macomb County is building new houses, new subdivisions. A lot of that, like check around Hall Road, 21st, 22nd mile, Shelby Township, new houses, new buildings are growing. And check around who is buying those houses. A lot of immigrants. I'm surrounded with a couple of immigrants in my subdivision, and I will tell you, those houses are about $400K and up. So I personally don't see why there is a problem with resettling refugees who are here legally. Please don't mix up illegal immigrants. These are legal individuals that are being resettled. They're being checked multiple times, and they're allowed to come to the United States and live like everyone else. So please, I want to give my support to Mr. Hackel, who is in agreement for keeping Macomb County for refugee resettlement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken, you only one time per customer in the first round. If you want to speak afterwards, you can come in and speak at the end. Yeah.
Chairman Brown.
Hello.
Commissioners, my name is Mike Morrow. I live at 12758 DeCook, Sterling Heights. Too many fail to fall into the current fallacy of lumping refugees, illegal aliens, legal immigrants, or visa holders in the same group, making productive discussion impossible. The following comments and concerns are regarding legal refugees only. Macomb County is in crisis in many areas. Homeless shelters are frequently full and must turn people away. Homeless are living under viaducts and overpasses. Veterans' needs are not adequately addressed. Local school systems have complained for years that they are underfunded and education is suffering. Injecting refugee students will add significantly to costs in terms of interpreters and social workers. We must care for our fellow citizens before we accept refugees. Roads and infrastructure costs are major concerns. There's talk of millages for a new jail and a coroner's facility. Federal grants will not provide long-range funding for refugees. We will ultimately be on the hook for refugee costs long after the federal dollars dangled in front of us dry up. President Trump's executive order of September 26, 2019 makes the default position. No refugees will be accepted unless a letter of consent is sent to the Federal Secretary of State. The executive order further specifies both the state and locality must consent in writing to accept refugees. Who specifically has the authority to accept refugees at the local level is not addressed. The Macomb County Board of Commissioners, as legitimately elected representatives of the people, have a duty to consider the welfare of residents. It is appropriate and in fact mandatory that this board send letters to the Michigan Secretary of State and the Federal Secretary of State stating that Macomb County cannot absorb refugees at this time. Our housing, social services, and health providers are currently strained to the limit addressing the needs of citizens. Secretaries of State Benson and Pompeo must be informed that Mr. Hackel did not speak with full authority when he unilaterally agreed to accept refugees. Second topic. Regarding the current push to designate counties Second Amendment sanctuary counties, the Second Amendment acknowledges our natural right to self-protection. The governor's red flag laws are an illegal power grab. The most powerful law enforcement officer in the United States is the county sheriff. A sheriff is directed directly by the people. The sheriff's only boss is the citizen. He reports to no executive, manager, commission, or anyone else. He takes an oath to uphold both state and federal constitutions. Therefore, Sheriff Wickersham is the ultimate person to uphold both constitutions and not enforce the proposed illegal red flag laws. All those interested in resisting the red flag laws, including the Board of Commissioners, needs to interact with the sheriff to see where he stands on this issue. One final note, I wasn't going to say this, but we've got it backwards. The sanctuary Second Amendment county indicates it's kind of taken after the sanctuary cities where they are illegally housing illegals. They're welcoming and they're giving sanctuary to illegal people. The illegal action here are the red flag laws. When this thing got started, we should have called it Second Amendment constitutional counties. That would put the emphasis in the right area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard under public comment? One person, okay. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes to speak any item on the agenda. Thank you.
My name is Leanne Fisk, and I live in Macomb Township. And I am absolutely appalled and infuriated that Mark Hackle took it upon himself to write a letter to the U.S. Secretary of State stating our area would welcome all refugees. And the key word here is all. This was with absolutely no input from our community, no vote from the people, and without notifying the community of his intent. His decision will have consequences for our community, economically and in our schools and businesses. This will affect our property values, our taxes, our zoning, our families, and potentially our safety. How many refugees will be settled here, and into what areas? How will they need to be accommodated? Where will they live? What will be the financial cost to our community? According to a February 5th, 2018 article by the Washington Examiner, the U.S. spends nearly $2 billion on refugees, with 18 federal and state programs that refugees use, including SSI, disability, housing, childcare, school loans, energy assistance, and the Earned Income Tax Credit. Will taxes go up in our community to financially support the refugees? How will our schools be affected? Classrooms are overcrowded and resources are low. Will teachers have to be hired for ESL classes and special tutors provided? Will classrooms be able to say the Pledge of Allegiance and have their holiday parties? And will curriculum be changed in order to be inclusive? Will changes be made with school lunches or to the classroom in order to accommodate religious beliefs? How will these changes affect the educational experience of our children? And will there be any health risks? How will the refugees affect our communities? Will low-income housing be built? And if so, will it affect our property values? Will zoning change to accommodate new places of worship? Will there be gerrymandering due to a shift in population? Will Macomb County residents lose their voting power? Remember, Trump won Michigan because of Macomb County. Will the safety of our communities be jeopardized? Will a larger police presence be needed? According to the Immigration Reform Institute, there have been many communities adversely affected by a large influx of refugees. For example, in a Minneapolis neighborhood, violent crimes increased by more than 50% in 2018, which police attributed to gang activity. The community also became a hotbed for terrorist recruitment. It's a fact that there is no way to thoroughly vet refugees. We don't have access to all their records. There is no way to ensure that the refugees are being completely honest on their applications either. Does this mean that all refugees are bad? Of course not. It does, however, reveal an unmistakable truth, which is immigration policy that emphasizes compassion for refugees over a community's best interest is not good policy for the community. Everyone should be extremely concerned, if not outraged, that Mark Hackle removed the voice of we the people from this decision, a decision that will affect our community for years to come, a decision that could have very serious repercussions for our family. This is nothing short of a slap in the face to all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard?
Sorry. Jasmine Early, a Sterling Heights resident. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Macomb County residents and that lady who was mistreated at the Sterling Heights City Council meeting. I'm part of the Citizens Emergency Response Team, and I'm here to support declaring Macomb County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. When I was growing up, we always had a gun in our house. We knew it, that it was not a toy, and we shouldn't touch it. Only adults could use it. I felt safe. I wish that my father would have brought it to his last trip, the last time we saw him alive. He got robbed and killed with a bullet in his forehead. I wish for years that there could have been somebody with a gun that could have saved his life that afternoon. I grew up with a father because a criminal took his life and there was nobody to defend him. When I came to this country, I was really excited to see that people carry their guns freely. I didn't wonder why America was a safer place. People were able to defend themselves. A criminal will think twice before attacking somebody that had a gun. I guess we are not living the same time now because a leftist agenda wants to take that right away. I don't know how people could think that we must put guns away to feel safer. Criminals are the first ones to find ways to get them. I'm grateful for those ones here who have common sense and want to protect our cities, county, and state. Those who want the law-abiding citizens to support the support for our law enforcement. I appreciate your boldness to stand up for this county. God bless you and encourage you to continue doing your job, putting the county residents first. Vote yes to declare Macomb County a safe place. Vote yes to declare Macomb County a Second Amendment sanctuary. Now, speaking about the refugee resettlement, I'm an immigrant from South America, an American citizen, a minority. I understood what assimilation was, but I also had been the one harassed, intimidated, hated, called a bigot, and all the names that the leftists use because I oppose the Refugee Resettlement Program. And why do I do that? First, to begin with, we had a deadline in January 21st, I believe, or 31st. You need to send a letter to Mr. Hackle to undo the mistake that he made. He doesn't speak on our behalf. We want to opt out from the Refugee Resettlement Program. As an immigrant who had a grandmother who was Black, a mom who is Native, Indian, Hispanic, I see the whole issue here. We had organizations that are they came and spoke, making money with these programs. But what about our safety? You took an oath to defend the Macomb County residents, to work for us, to serve us. Put us first. When the lecturing that I received from the mayor, who hypocritical, talk about bringing people in and that how come an immigrant is speaking in that way for people who want to come, is the same person, some of them, that has said that I should move out of the city and he will pay my moving expenses. And the people that came and attacked in Facebook in the last few weeks the people that oppose that refugee resettlement.
You have
that
1
was
minute.
wrong.
You have 1 minute.
I also want, moving on, please, up top from that program, send a letter to Mr. Hackle. If you don't do it, the residents in Macomb County are gonna do it. Also, I'm here to ask you to ban Macomb County from becoming a sanctuary county. We want to protect this county. Those issues nobody's talking about. I'm an immigrant. I know the refugee resettlement is for legal immigrants, but we also had illegals. We had to make this county, we had to ban this county from becoming a sanctuary for illegals. It is your responsibility, your moral responsibility to us, and start with thinking about us first. This is not a political party. This is about the residents that you represent and are expecting for you to do your job. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. Today I'm going to speak on the refugee resettlement issue. I know many of you, I'm sorry. I'm Sue Catula. I live at 5310 Dixon in Sterling Heights, Michigan. And I've been a resident of Macomb County for 32 years. I'm actually an immigrant myself, came to America from Iraq in 1968. I am a mom of 5 children that actually graduated from probably the most diverse high school in Macomb County, which at the city council meeting, we were very grateful to present them with a banner from U.S. News and World Report to be the #1 high school in the county in 2017 and 2018. I am an elected official. I do sit on the school board, and one of the reasons I ran was because of the high diversity that we had in our school district, and to be a representative, someone that is bilingual and an immigrant. I just find it very, I guess it's ignorance when we speak about refugees and immigrants. I try to do my homework today. I came in and listened to a lot of people. I do respect everyone's opinion, but sometimes it's really hard to really kind of understand. Just gonna give you a personal story. My uncle, in 1991, decided to immigrate to America. He had a 8-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 12-year-old son. He turned in his paperwork and to decide to come to America as a legal immigrant. It took 14 years by the time his file came up to America, and that's really good because now it's 19 years. And so, after 14 years, he went to go and get his visa, and they told him, I'm sorry, your 3 sons are over age 21. They need to apply themselves. So they need to wait another 14 years. So at that time, the boys could not go back to a country because their parents are not there with them, and their immigration status was a refugee. So all 3 are doctors. And one of the doctors applied for New York on a Fulbright scholarship, did go to New York, eventually graduated, and now is working in Ann Arbor as a doctor. The other one applied for refugee and was sent to Australia, and he is a doctor there. The other one, with the family, moved into Sterling Heights, and he actually did not go back to medical school in America. He became a psychologist. And they are very successful. The family pays taxes, bought a condo, is living in a home, and they're I just can't even emphasize. So many times people think refugees are just, coming in with bugs and they have no clothing and they're horrible, destitute to the county. And it's not that, it's a status, right? It's a status on your green card. The other thing I just wanted to say before my time was up that I always thank many elected officials, government officials, federal, county, all governments, because without their support of refugees and immigrants, I will tell you right now, here and just in this room, okay, if it's ourselves, our parents, our grandparents, okay, if this was not acceptable, if we were not a welcoming country, county, city, right, and we were not welcoming people, no one in this room would be sitting here today. And I would have to say to you, if we would be turned away and we would not be able to call Macomb our home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Nancy Tissio, and I live at 16155 Vista Woods Court, Clinton Township. I listened to all these stories. Her story is our story. We all have the same story. We all, we weren't from America. But my point is I just think if Hackle is going to accept refugees, he should put that up to the vote of the county. I think it should be something that the people vote on. I mean, and if it's the will of the county, then the vote will reflect that. That's my 2 cents. I just don't think, sending a letter to Pompeo and, accepting them without the will of the people being known is just wrong. And I just wonder if you guys could send a letter putting this thing on hold till we do have some kind of an election. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Paul Driscoll. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I volunteered, to stop communism, all right, and I volunteered to defend the Constitution of America. And what I'm looking at is, when we're looking at all these refugees, we got to look at who is selecting these refugees, okay? And the majority, right, in a number of places, it'll tell you it's the UN. Now, the UN hasn't been really a friend of America, and it's time that we realize that. And since 2001, America's taken in 895,000 refugees. Right? California, 99,000. Right? We're looking at Michigan, 34,000. So we're about a third, to California. Now, if you take a look at California, they're falling apart. The middle class is leaving California. They don't want to be there, okay? If we look at it, there's 2 counties so far. In Virginia, a county voted out. Okay, again, the board, the commissioners voted out and opt out of the program. And so did in Minnesota, another county. All right, so it can be done. Texas, as a state, opt out of refugee resettlement. All right, so again, it can be done. And we're hoping to count on you to make the difference, with our executive. All right, 2, we got to look at, where is the money behind this push? Well, if you look at the Catholic bishops, and I'm Catholic, the totals from 2008 to 2018, right, is $662 million. Okay, now you might say, well, that's not our money, here in the county. It's our tax money that's paying them. Right, the Lutherans made $340 million. Right, the U.S. Committee for Refugees, $410 million. The International Rescue Committee, $840 million. Right, so yeah, there's money behind it and there's money pushing it. Right, and that's what we need to look at. So again, and another big concern of mine, and probably the biggest concern, is that our Department of Education put together a program, Access Islam, all right? In doing so, they put a program together that it goes to the 5th graders all the way to the 12th graders, and they learn how to pray to Islam. Right? That concerns me. That is my main concern, okay? And it's what we need to look at and address, okay? And with that, I thank you. And one last thing. Thomas More reported, again, this is August 22nd, 2019, where 400 teachers, and it was caught, 400 teachers being trained in Islam. We can't even say Jesus Christ in our schools, but yet we're going to train them on Islam. In California, there's a mandatory religious class in Modesto, California. you don't graduate unless you go through that program. Those are the things that are coming our way. If you look at what's happening in England, the English people are trying to get out of England because it's so bad. All right? People, wake up. We are losing our country. And it's up to you guys to make the decision to stop it. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak on the first round? Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Item 6 is appointment interviews. Item 6 is the appointment of interviews for the Friend of the Court Advisory Committee. We have Tom Bohm here who's going to speak about 2 of the nominees that couldn't be here today, but this is a, so Tom, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Commissioners, and good afternoon. Tom Bohm on behalf of the Friend of the Court. And we're before the board today for reappointment of 2 members of the Friend of the Court Citizens Advisory Committee. Both are current members of that committee at this time. Dawn Prokopek represents the requirement for an attorney who engages primarily in family law. She's a very well-respected attorney. We see her in her office all the time. Very well-respected and an excellent attorney. She is up for reappointment. Jill Thomas Little represents the requirement for a custodial parent representative and has been on the committee since day one, I think over 5 years now, and has also been a very valuable member of the committee. I am recommending that each one of these individuals be reappointed. If you don't recall, our Citizens Advisory Committee, the function of that committee is to review and investigate Friend of the Court grievances concerning our office operations and employees, and then advise the court as well as this fine board.
Remind the board, this is an executive appointment with board concurrence. These will go to the full board. Any questions for Tom? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Need a motion to receive and file the moved by Commissioner Carabelli, supported by Commissioner Duge. Please vote. Thank you. Item 7, department recommendations. 7A, collective bargaining agreement for Fraternal Order of Police. We have Andrew McKinnon. Is Mr. McKinnon here, or his representative? You don't look like Andrew.
I'm not Andrew McKinnon. I'm Brian Jacks from Human Resources and Labor Relations. And Andrew's on his way up. He got called into a grievance meeting. So yeah, I think in the next minute or so he should be up here. If you, with all due respect, want to move on to the next agenda, that's fine for us, but or we can wait.
Well, the next item is item B, which is also under Andrew's purview. We'll give you a pause. Thank you. Okay. Item 7A, information technology maintenance agreements, first quarter package. That's yesterday. Yes. Item 8 is a resolution declaring Macomb County a sanctuary county. It's offered by Commissioner Kraft. Is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner Kraft. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Gillette. Discussion. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's been a lot said on both sides, so I will keep this very brief. I've introduced this resolution in response to actions being taken that threaten our constituents' Second Amendment rights. Virginia is currently in the spotlight as lawmakers there have introduced and are approving gun control legislation. Why is this relevant to us here in Macomb County, Michigan? Governor Whitmer has signed a letter with 11 other governors to President Trump and Senate Majority Leader McConnell urging them to pass similar measures. As of now, about 20 states have counties that are Second Amendment sanctuary counties. Other counties in our state, such as Marquette, Monroe, and St. Clair County, have discussed this issue and are considering taking similar action to this resolution. This resolution sends a clear message to our state and federal leaders that Macomb County will not allow our Second Amendment right to be violated in any way. We took an oath when we were elected to uphold and defend the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Michigan. Approving this resolution shows the residents of Macomb County that we oppose any attempts to undermine our rights. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, wow.
I was unaware that there was a big push in Macomb County to go after the Second Amendment. So from both of these perspectives, nothing new was happening in the county. Somebody introduced a resolution that got everybody on both sides of the aisle all riled up, where they weren't riled up 2 weeks ago. So that's very interesting to me. We have to talk to each other and not the audience, and I respect that. I do want to say thank you to the member that spoke for his service and his responsible gun ownership. I'm not against the Second Amendment. I'm also not against due process. My family's from Montana. Everybody's got guns. Everybody in my family has guns. I don't have any problem with anybody lawfully carrying a gun. But that's not what this amendment says. One of the speakers hit the nail on the head. This amendment says we determine, first of all, what's a violation of the Second Amendment and what's not, what's a violation of the Constitution instead of the courts. And that's not our role. Now, East Point did something really interesting recently, and it's going to be challenged, and they're probably going to lose. They enacted an ordinance that if you leave your guns in your car and you don't lock your car and the guns get taken, we're going to give you a ticket. And guess what? This resolution says that's not appropriate, and that one may even be found to be inappropriate because it's more restrictive than the state. But if you are not intelligent enough to remove your car, to lock your door if you're leaving guns in your car, or to leave your lock your door whether your guns are in there or not. If you are not intelligent enough to secure that gun, then I don't think you ought to have a gun. And this is just talking about a ticket. This resolution says anything of that nature is inappropriate. Also says the ban of taking guns into the courtrooms is inappropriate. It says it's unconstitutional. That's already been held to be constitutional. That's the court's decision to make that. That's not our decision to make that, and I don't think that we should say something that the courts have already determined is constitutional. I don't think we as a body all should get on our high horse and announce that the courts are wrong, and any decision that the Supreme Court has said with regard to allowing restrictions, that we should say the Supreme Court is wrong. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a judge, and that's not my role. So I wanted to point that out. The individual that said hold people accountable for their actions, I was talking about that with the East Point thing. And I don't have any problem with anybody. When I was on City Council in East Point, people came in open carry. They were carrying their guns. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with people that carry concealed weapons. That's not what this says. And prior to this being put on the agenda, there was no push in this county that I am aware of to restrict anything from anybody. This was put on the agenda, and it got everybody all riled up. For what reason, I am not sure, but it certainly doesn't have anything to do with the things that were spoken about today. So I can't tell the Supreme Court what to do, so I can't vote for this resolution. And I did look up sanctuary cities for Second Amendment, and the definition of it is that we determine things to be unconstitutional, that any infringement. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nugent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I originally saw this,
Commissioner Nugent, you wait, hold 1 second.
sure.
Mr. McKinnon? We're gonna move your item to the full board meeting, so you can be excused, because this may be a bit of a while. So we're gonna excuse you to waive it to full board, okay? Very good. No problem. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner.
When I first saw this, I started looking at it, and I had to read it a few times. I can't support it because of what it infers and what it says. The sheriff to exercise sound discretion and not enforce unconstitutional firearms. This makes no sense. We can want to write laws, we can debate laws. The Supreme Court will decide one way or another what is legitimate and what is not. This just makes no sense to me. We have the Second Amendment. It is proper. The Supreme Court has ruled that we don't have a problem with the Second Amendment. Personally, I think the Second Amendment is going to be all the laws that are being passed in Virginia are going to be deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. That being said, this is just, I don't understand why we have a resolution to support the sheriff to not enforce unconstitutional laws. The whole thing just doesn't make sense. So I'll be voting against this. And like my colleague said 2 weeks ago, this was a non-item. And now all of a sudden, this is a rather large item. If you're going to make law, or if you're going to make resolutions, make it so that it actually does something. This, I don't feel, does anything. So I'll be voting against it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Dujay. Commissioner Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Constitution has been referred to both as the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, which we are all sworn to uphold. That's not anything that's debatable. I fully support the Second Amendment. I have my voting record as a state representative will show forth that I have supported many of the issues dealing with the Second Amendment. And I want to thank all of those that expressed their views here tonight. Obviously, it's a very diversive subject. There are those strong feelings on both sides of it. We don't write laws. This body does not write laws. The state and the federal government writes the laws. So I will offer to my seatmate and colleague and good friend who had some obviously positive intentions when he put this on the agenda, I would hope. And the issue with the sheriff coming out and saying he can't, not to enforce unconstitutional firearms, or we're going to hit him from a budgetary configuration. I don't know that that part's legal. I'm going to offer to my colleague, based on the dialogue and the conversation that he's heard from many of us here, as well as the audience, the opportunity to amend, if not rewrite or even withdraw this resolution. It's not in a format, and again, I don't know where this became an issue for Macomb County. It's certainly not in recent years. We debated gun rights up in Lansing probably for the 6 years that I was there. And I don't think anything changed. I really don't. So my point being is we've all indicated to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and I'm hoping that and I do want to make one thing clear, Mr. Chair. We all don't write these resolutions. There was an inference made at the microphone that this was a resolution prepared by all of us. It's on the agenda. I'm glad to see your head go north and south. It's on the agenda for action by all of us. Doesn't mean we all wrote it or we agree with it. Certainly not all of the attributes in it. So I just want to make that part clear. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've read the resolution, and I can see where people might read different things into this in the wording of the resolution. To me, the resolution, as I read it, doesn't suggest that we determine what is constitutional, or even the sheriff does, but rather that we don't enforce unconstitutional laws. Those laws may be determined by the Supreme Court, by the state court, or something like that. But I can understand that it's not particularly clear on that. So I'm interpreting this resolution, I think the way many people have, as more of a symbolic statement as to our, at least the way I read it, a symbolic statement as to whether or not we feel that the Second Amendment is being threatened and worthy of defending. That's just how I'm interpreting this resolution, because I think it's a little unclear as to what the actual effects are. So I'm going to be voting based on that. I think the rest of it is a little bit unclear as to exactly what relevance it would have in law. I just see it as a symbol of support for the Second Amendment in a society where that is become unfortunately controversial.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillette. Commissioner Smith. Chairman Smith.
Thank you. A lot of the commissioners that spoke before me kind of echo what I think, and I think the majority of these people in this room believe in the Second Amendment. I also believe up here that we've done a very good job as commissioners of not trying to stick our noses in where we don't really have any authority. This was not written by everybody. However, I will say that there are a few things in here that I know the sheriff had a little issue with. There are some things in here that kind of talk to things that I don't really think that we have much effect on. But I will say that the very last sentence of it, if you just put this resolution in here that we stand in solidarity with the law-abiding citizens to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is basically, I remember when I raised my hand doing this, and we had opposed any enactment of legislation that would infringe upon the rights of people to keep and bear arms and consider those laws unconstitutional. If that was the scope of this, I would say great, because that is exactly what we are here to do. But to add to it what we're going to do with the sheriff and declare a sanctuary city, when at this point, I don't, like one of the commissioners over here, Commissioner Kleinfeld, up until this was brought up, I didn't know we had anything really going on over in this county. And I don't like, this is preempting something which all of a sudden got everybody out, who are very passionate about this issue one way or another. I just think that when a problem like this occurs, since we don't have anything to do with actually writing this law, that's when we should be talking about what we might try to do in Macomb County. Until then, we are all sworn to uphold the Second Amendment, both of the state and the federal Constitution, and all the amendments. And if that's, I like Commissioner Drollet. He's going to go on what he believes is the overall intent of this. I wanted to say what I wanted to say before I vote on it. So you bring me back something that says I am all for the Second Amendment and that's what it says, I'm voting for it all day. I don't like a lot of the extras in here. And there's been a lot of talk recently about different communities that are writing this in a little different way that tend to be less intrusive or overstepping their bounds as commissioners. And I think that there's some time that maybe we need to look at it. St. Clair County was one of them that just wrote something that seems to be on a little different vein, but still accomplishes what you're trying to accomplish. So until that comes in front of me, I'm going to vote no on this, and then hope that you bring back something that says a little bit more of what we can do and less of what we can't do. Thank you.
I put this on the agenda because I respect what Commissioner Kraft's intentions are, and they're my intentions as well, and from what it sounds like, the majority of this board, that we support the Second Amendment. But the Second Amendment is under attack in this country. We hear it in some of our presidential candidates' rhetoric calling for gun bans, gun confiscation. We've seen it in actions in other state legislatures being attacks on the Second Amendment. And all this simply says is that we don't hold those views. We're speaking for the majority of the people of this country that reject those claims by those who wish to take away the Second Amendment in various ways. So I think that Commissioner Kraft's to be commended for what he's brought forward, and maybe he wishes to make some amendment to it that makes it a little bit more palatable, but his intentions are right, and something that I support. And again, it comes as a backlash to what we're hearing on the media. We got presidential candidates and everyone else saying things that are against us, and that's why this has come forward, I think. So I see Commissioner Kraft's on the agenda, so next, so I'll let you speak, Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all my colleagues for your comments. I want to piggyback off of Commissioner Hall and Chair Smith's comments. Just like with other resolutions I've introduced, I have no problem welcoming other ideas. I will entertain amendment ideas. I have no problem with that. The core of this resolution is defending our Second Amendment right. That is the core. And if we have to modify a little bit of language to do that, I'm willing to do that. And yes, this is a statement resolution, just like every other resolution we do is a statement. None of this is legally binding. Resolutions are statements. We have resolutions supporting bills in the Senate, bills in the House. Those are a statement from us saying we oppose those or we support those. That's what this is doing. That's what this is at the core. So if there are amendments to be made, I'm happy to entertain them, like I said, and we can talk about those. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. Veteran commissioners will remember a time when any and all social issues, there were resolutions being put before this board. There was a resolution on the Constitution that commissioners would vote against, which I didn't understand. Commissioners in my own party voted against. I'm voting for that. I'm not against the Constitution. There were resolutions on welfare. There were resolutions on anything and everything that you could possibly imagine that was a hot button issue. And all they did was divide us, because our job in county government, everybody up here knows it's rarely partisan. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to go back down that road where we're introducing resolutions. One side introduces a resolution and we fight and a bunch of people come and yell at us. And then the other side introduces a resolution, because it really does deteriorate our ability to work with each other and to come to compromise. And we had gotten away from that for a few years, and I thought that was a positive thing. It is funny, the very last sentence was the one that I was concerned about, specifically because it says, we oppose the enactment of any legislation that would infringe upon the right, and then it says, we consider such laws to be unconstitutional. There are already laws on the books that have been found to be constitutional, and I thought, well, we don't have a right to do that when other people have. But I understand what you were trying to say with respect to that. I just don't want to go down this road where we're getting, now, resolutions on particular bills at the House that affect counties, that's an entirely different issue. Particular bills that are in the legislature in Lansing that are directly going to affect counties and our ability to do services, I think we should do resolutions and let the state know what we're thinking. That's all. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld. Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, I just looked at this, and I've seen many resolutions come before this board. This one here, we never discussed one iota. We should have been looking at this and talking. I checked off 3 or 4 things I want to throw off this resolution. So we've got to discuss them before we bring them before this board. A lot of great comments out there from the public, but being a retired cop, I know what it's like to carry a gun and not carry a gun. So thank you.
Commissioner Smith, Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Going on the vein of what Commissioner Kleinfeld was just talking about, we do a lot of things on this board bipartisan, and we do get along and agree on a lot of topics. I guess my question, and even Commissioner Sauger, what he just mentioned, we really haven't discussed this as a group much. We haven't talked about it, and it sounds to me like there might be a resolution that we might all be able to agree on based on the Second Amendment. So my question to you, and I know you brought this up, that you're willing to look at amendments. None of us have any amendments at this moment right now. I know that I just started looking today at some of the other communities that have enacted some of these things. So my question is this. I'm going to vote no at this point. If you, it's up to you, would like to table this, pull it off, maybe have a little more discussion on it, maybe see if we can come up with a resolution that actually satisfies, everybody's agreement that they like the Second Amendment, but maybe not the wording on here. I'm just going to throw that out there because I've seen this board work together and actually come to some pretty good common sense agreements at the end of the day.
Commissioner Kraft, will you be willing to table this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to table the resolution.
To a future, no specific date. Comes back to this committee when it's ready.
Mr. Chair, can you just confirm for the supporter of the motion that he's willing to withdraw? It's Commissioner Drolet.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, a motion to table just shuts that down.
Anyway, Commissioner Gillette, you agree to table this?
Withdraw your original.
I'm not withdrawing my second. It's a different motion to table.
Correct. Right. So he had a support from Commissioner Carabelli.
Okay, motion's been made and supported. Please vote. The table.
The vote is a motion to table, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the other vote just doesn't take place.
That's right.
If the table passes.
The motion to table passed 10-1. So this item will come back before this committee at a date when the maker of the motion makes modifications to it. Item number 9, correspondence. Items A, B, and C.
Motion to receive and file all, A, B, and C.
Been a motion to file all A, B, and C. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Sark. Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was some great discussion from a lot of people on this letter that our county executive had sent to the secretary. But unfortunately, I don't think anybody's seen the second letter that was written. And I would ask at this time to have Crystal read the second letter, because I think it answers a lot of the questions that were brought up from the first letter. And
I don't think, I'm
well,
not going to allow that.
well, then, Mr. Chairman.
If we can make copies and make it available for them, they certainly could do that.
Mr. Chairman, the reason why I do that, if
That way
you,
they can take it with them and share the information.
okay, Mr. Chairman, the reason why I'm saying that, the concerns that the residents brought up, that came here today, I mean, I can read it, but she can read a lot better than I can. But if you want me to read it, I'll take my time to do that. I'm just asking if Crystal can read this, because at the end of the day, all the questions that the residents had brought up, I think the executive answered in the second letter that the residents didn't see.
No, we saw that.
Okay. Well, all right, real quick, this is dated January 3rd.
Commissioner Carabelli?
Yes, sir.
I'll let Crystal read it for you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
She reads better than you.
Well, that's why I asked her to do it in the beginning.
Great. Memo to the chief elected officials of Macomb County Communities from Mark Hackle, Macomb County Executive, dated January 3rd, 2020, regarding the National Refugee Admissions Program. There seems to be some confusion over the December 12th, 2019 letter I wrote to the U.S. Secretary of State regarding the National Refugee Admissions Program. Federal Executive Order 13888 requires state and local governments to issue a written statement of consent in order to receive international refugees under the Department of State's Reception and Placement Program. This executive order also directs the Secretary of State to publicly release those consent statements. It appears some people are confusing communities that welcome refugees who are admitted legally and vetted by the State Department with communities that afford sanctuary to individuals who have entered this country illegally. The consent letter only applies to people entering the country legally. Macomb County's consent letter simply continues its longstanding commitment to be a welcoming community. In fact, 1 in 9 people currently living in our county was foreign-born, and they have been welcomed by and are living in every community in the county. The governor has already sent a consent letter on behalf of the state, and my regional counterparts have done so on behalf of their counties. However, none of this prevents a local government from expressing its desire to not be designated as a resettlement community for legally admitted international refugees. Every local community within Macomb County is free to withhold its consent, and if a community chooses to do so, it is free to communicate its wishes to Secretary Pompeo and to my office. As always, please contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Carroll. You can still have the floor, Commissioner.
No, I think that a lot of the questions that were brought up and concerns, excuse me, according to this letter from the executive, is that each community can opt out of this if that is a concern. So I'm just, again, I wanted to make sure that was read into the record. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Got a motion to receive and file.
Am I on that list? I'm sorry, I put it on, but I'm going to see if the council came up. Nope.
Okay, go ahead. Chairman Smith.
Thank you.
And correspondence.
Thank you. I just have to speak to this too, Commissioner Carabelli. Well, I'm happy you had that letter read. I'm sure it was out there, but you know, sometimes we get into these conversations and we confuse legal immigration with illegal immigration. And I'm not saying all of you are confusing, but it's been in the paper confused, right? They've been blended. And all of a sudden, if you're against immigration, or if you're against immigration, illegal immigration, you're against all immigration. If you're for immigration, then you must be for illegal immigration. You know, this refugee status is not something that is taken lightly. There's a really stringent application process. Refugees have to pay taxes. So everybody that's out there worried about our schools and our roads and immigrants that are refugees are on the tax roll. They're the immigrants that pay taxes. They're the ones that help our communities out. The studies show that they have a higher propensity to start their own businesses. We are not talking about illegal immigrants that come into this country and are working under the table. They're not paying taxes. They're the drain on our communities that some people are worried about. The process takes 2 years. They're vetted by the United States security offices. They're vetted. I mean, fingerprints, background checks. No, listen, people slip through. We're not saying that everybody's perfect. People get out of jail that aren't supposed to get out of jail. Our own systems aren't perfect. But it drives me crazy when people, my grandparents are from Italy. They came to Ellis Island. They had a process. Someone had to sponsor them. They had to become citizens and productive citizens of this country. And they did. And that's why most all of us are here. Most, not all, of refugees do the same thing. And they become productive members of our society. I don't like the combining of illegal immigrants and legal immigration. They are two separate things. And this is not a participation sport right now. Thank you, Mark Hackle, for welcoming these hardworking members of our society, legal community, legal citizens of the United States to our community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Majak.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well said, Chairman Smith. It's hard to follow what you just said. Thing that bothers me about this is it's very shameful. You know, I told my wife this before I came here today. It said, Maria, you know, I feel nervous coming here today. And she's like, why? And I said, you know, there's going to be a lot of things that people are going to say that may be hateful. And I guess I was right in telling her that. To one of the speakers there, Vesna, I think you said you're from Bosnia. You know, it bothers me because I think there's some racism and discrimination out there. And some folks would be okay with you coming here because you're from Europe and you're Caucasian. But In other circumstances, it depends where the folks are coming from. If you're from the Middle East, if you're a different skin color, if you're a non-Christian religion, people have problems with that. And that can't be tolerated. I grew up, I'm a son of an immigrant. My father's from Southern Eastern Europe. I grew up in Brister Drive. Neighbor next to me, the Jonais, they're Albanian. Next door to me were the Bankas, they were Slovak. The Banks family across the street were Scottish. He would play his bagpipe with his kilt every now and then. They were immigrants. Piaks and Brzezowski were Polish. The Freemans were Irish. The Rosellis, lots of Italians in our neighborhood. And of course, Leonetti also Italian. And also the Gumas, who were Chaldeans. So we had a lot of diversity. Some of the families had been there for a few generations. Some, like myself and my neighbors, were there for the first time, or immigrants families. And we told a lot of jokes to each other, Polish jokes, Italian jokes, whatnot. But we never took it serious, and I never felt any type of stereotypical racism based on where you're from or whether you're a son of an immigrant or the father's an immigrant. Never had those feelings. But here today, hearing Macomb County residents speak, it's very shameful to hear that. And one thing I remember clearly in the Macomb Daily, they're talking about diversity in Macomb County. They had a front page article a number of years ago, and they talked about how families of immigrants do in Macomb County from an economic and status and other things. And I remember it clearly that they said that immigrant families, that their relatives, or the next generation, they had better marriages. In other words, they had less of a divorce rate. They were more capitalist business owners and tended to have a higher degree of education. And that's kind of what we're always looking for in Macomb County. We have a labor shortage, somewhat a people shortage. And so with that, I'll close with that, but the story of immigrants coming here basically is the story of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Majak. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel a little bit old-fashioned, perhaps, in my patriotism, in the sense that I grew up through the school system, and as a young man, being so appreciative of our country and of our Constitution and of the things that made our country great. And it's odd to me to see that some of those things are now controversial. I don't find the Second Amendment to be controversial, and I don't find welcoming of immigration to be controversial. I think that is part of our American heritage, something that we should be all proud of as Americans, that we should celebrate. I don't think there's anything wrong with embracing the intent and the intent of the entire Bill of Rights, including the Second Amendment, to ensure that rights are bestowed to the individuals. And I don't think there's anything wrong with welcoming our history, our heritage, of welcoming immigrants to this country that are coming here to work, that are coming here to do to do a good job and to contribute their resources, their family, their talent to this country, just as all the immigrants have in the past. So I am somebody who, maybe I'm old-fashioned, maybe it's not cool to care about both these issues and think they're both American issues, and think we can be patriots and support our Second Amendment and welcoming people of different cultures coming here. I'd rather live in a country who are fighting to get here than fighting to get out. So I just find that a little odd that somehow it's become divisive to be a patriot. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Gillette. Commissioner Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must be old-fashioned in my patriotism as well, Leon. Thank you. These issues clearly were put on social media. They weren't even not put on there accurately, and I think they were put on there decisively to cause an upstor in Macomb County. The way it was posted that our county executive, and thank you, Chairman, for that great clarification on that issue, was allowing illegal immigrants into Macomb County is what the letter said. Never said that, and I was grateful for his clarification in doing that. I'm grateful for the chairman's clarification on that position. There were, Commissioner Myjack, some very harmful, mean-spirited comments. It's not what Macomb County is about, but we are entering into a political arena in 2020 where each one of us as Americans and voters need to look at where the facts lie, where the sources are, where did this come from, how did this happen. We don't need that divisiveness sitting in this chamber here on these issues, because we can start with resolutions on, well, we'll use gun control, immigration, abortion, women's rights, but that's not what we're here to do, and I'm not lecturing my colleagues. I'm not doing that. Somebody else does that very well for me, but it won't be me. I didn't say anything. My point being is, this is the year these issues are all going to be decided at the ballot box. We know that. Bringing them into our forums, as Commissioner Kleinfeld said, we had walked, I wasn't here then, so I'm assuming some of the senior members, including you, Mr. Chairman, had made the decisions that these types of issues were not for this forum here. If they impact Macomb County, I'm all in. I had 6 years of debating these issues up at the State House as a state representative. We talked gas tax from the first day I was there to the last day I left. Still not resolved. Still not resolved. We cannot implement a gas tax, I don't think we can, sitting here in Macomb County. Or want to. How's that? I got done said. So with that, I want to again thank the chairman for the clarification. Crystal, you read that very well. Thank you for that as well. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hogg. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. Just two quick things. The first is, not only did he not say those things, there actually hasn't been a policy change. There's been zero policy change. There was changes at the federal government on requirements to communities, but there was no policy change in Macomb County. Anyway, here's what I want to say. If there are people that do not want refugees settling in their community, I want each and every one of you to know that I hope they all come to East Point where I live, because I can speak for myself and my neighbors. We'd love to have each and every one of them. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you're looking for a motion?
Yes.
Motion to receive and file.
Support it.
Yeah, I made it. Nobody seconded.
No. I support it. Allow Commissioner Sauer to support. Please vote. Motion passes. Number 10, new business. Any new business, Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like the Board of Commissioners know that SEMCOG announces an $86 million in funding to improve air quality and reduce congestion. Again, $86 million. Out of that $86 million, Macomb County was the second largest recipient of just under 20%. We'll be receiving $15.58 million, just under $16 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Carabelli. Anybody else on a new business? Seeing no new business, public participation. Anyone wish for the public wish to be heard?
Sorry, crap, sitting too long. Oh, my goodness.
We know the feeling.
I'm telling you.
Okay, so again, you have to state your name and address for the record. You
My
have
name
5
is Carol
minutes.
Chi. I live at 35325 Moravian in Sterling Heights.
I just wanted to correct the record. There was a lady earlier that had spoken about the Sterling Heights City Council meeting where she said that people speaking about the refugees coming into Macomb County, she said that most of them were not Macomb County residents, and that's not true at all. I know because I was there, and everyone there was either from Sterling Heights or Macomb County. In fact, I was really proud of the city council in Sterling Heights because they spoke eloquently. It was heartwarming, all their stories about refugees, people that are married in their own family to people from other countries. It's really incredible. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I'm the granddaughter of 3 immigrants. I'm the great-granddaughter of my 4th grandparent. And when I grew up, I went to Wayne State University, went to college, and had friends. We had friends from almost every country in the world. We called ourselves a United Nations of Friends, and we are friends to this day. I'm very proud of that. In fact, that's where I met my husband, who is also an immigrant. And were it not for his ability he was a teacher in Detroit for 30 years. He had a good job, taught at Denby High School for 30 years, then retired. But he was an immigrant, and if it were not for that job, he couldn't have stayed in this country because he was really stateless. He's from China, from mainland China, from northern China. And they left during World War II. They escaped because his dad was a Lutheran missionary minister. They escaped China. He grew up in Hong Kong and Kowloon and then Malaysia and then came to this country to go to college and was fortunate to be able to stay and provide himself and myself a good living. And I became a teacher also because of him. So we both became teachers. And we had thousands of kids as our students. And we see them every now and then, either on the news or in this grocery store or on the street or whatever. We hear about them, see them at different events. So we are proud. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm Slovak, Ukraine, Bohemian, and Czech. We're all proud of that. Immigrants have provided a rich fabric of our society, richest as could be, richer than any nation on earth. We need to be proud of that, support that, and keep it going, and accept refugees, and accept immigrants. And when we call people illegal, it's a shame to call people illegal. People come here to seek refuge in our country like they're coming from South America and Central America because they're being persecuted there, or they have such droughts that they can't even have a garden in their yard or anything. So that's why they come up here. So we should be helping those countries. And they're not illegal. And those are the people that go into the fields in California and pick lettuce that goes on our tables, and pick grapes and cherries and peaches and apples and corn and everything else. Are we going to do it? No. Is any American going to do it? No. For the small amount of money that they make and the lack of bathrooms that they have in those fields when they work. And I thank you for listening. I guess I'll write my name down here.
Thank you.
Carmi Finn, 32631 Desmond Drive, Warren, Michigan. I spoke earlier representing Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, and that's what I'm speaking as again. I would just like to make something very clear. Moms Demand Action is not against the Second Amendment. If anyone goes to our webpage or looks at our business cards, we have 4 main goals, and not one of them is to take away anyone's guns. We want common sense gun laws that work within the Constitution of the United States to improve safety for Americans in this country. We are a country that has more gun deaths by a massive percentage than anywhere else in the country. We're trying to prevent that. We're trying to make it safer for everyone within the framework of the Constitution. Responsible gun owners should own guns. Many of us do. So for someone to say that they believe that those of us speaking against making Macomb County a sanctuary county are people who don't know anything about guns or don't own guns, that is a huge fallacy. Many of us own guns, are from families of hunters, sports shooters, veterans, police officers. We're in the gun community just like the Second Amendment proponents are. I wanted to clear that up because I don't want the perception out there that we are against the Second Amendment. We believe that within the Second Amendment, you can make laws that do not take away people's rights, but that make us all safer from gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jasmine Early, Sterling Heights. I love that we get the opportunity to be here again. You don't get that in too many meetings. It is amazing the way things get twisted. It was clear that you had plenty of time to review the resolution. The residents did it for the Second Amendment. We did it, we read it. That is why we came here. I don't have time to waste and stand here and be lectured by socialists that think that we are wrong. So you had plenty of time. To say that you didn't is kind of deceiving. Second, you talk about immigration. I went through that process. Which one of you sitting here did it? None. If you had checked about Italians, the European countries that are saying no to the refugee resettlement, you will not be lecturing us why we needed to put a stop. We are still with time to put a stop to the refugee resettlement for now in Macomb County. If you have seen the counties in the U.S. that already are opting out from that program, because when President Trump signed the bill, I believe it's 13888, he did it to give us the option to say no or to say yes. Mr. Hackle rushed to say yes because he didn't want this backlash that he had. Yes, we read the letter that he sent in January 3rd after the backlash from the residents to the city officials. I had been in different city council meetings letting them know. You know what they say in Sterling Heights? That is not business, in other words. I'm paraphrasing. It is, Mr. Hackle, it is the county commissioners. So please stay playing balls. We are adults here. Your stories about your immigrant parents, your immigrant backgrounds, we already know it. You are talking about immigrants, legal immigrants that came in the same way I came. I had friends from Chaldean background that opposed the refugee resettlement. I have friends that are from Italy that oppose the refugee resettlement. And just check the news, it's there. Google is a great tool. And you will see how much Italy has been fighting against the refugee resettlement. Or what country, Germany, France. Go and check the Refugee Resettlement Watch page. Those people are investigating this issue. We are not ignorant people that take the time or try to waste our time to come here and talk about these issues. And patriotism, I was not born here.
You have 1 minute.
Never thought that I will come to this country to fight for this country. I could sit in my house and not worry about this, not even care, but I had a son that I want to have a better future for him. The same patriotism that we are trying to defend. Put Macomb County first, and we will write that letter to Mr. Hackle and to Mr. Pompeo. If I had to go to see him personally, thank you, and say no.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Barbara Zinner. I'm from Harrison Township. I'm an American, and I'm not sorry for it. And I'm not sorry that I'm not an immigrant. A couple of you mentioned that you were quite upset with what you heard here tonight. And I listened to every person, listened to everything they said, and I didn't agree with everyone. I didn't agree with half of what they said or nothing or none of what they said. But I had respect for what they said. I had respect for them, for their opinion. And my family goes back several generations on both sides. So somebody was an immigrant somewhere. I understand immigrants. My husband and I have met several people who have become immigrants in the last 30 or less years. And they've explained where they've come from, their parents, their grandparents, situations in their countries. It was particularly interesting when one of my daughters in college met a girl her age, and she described, when she was listening to one of the presidential candidates several years ago, how afraid she was because she thought that she was leaving. She had left a communist regime, and she was afraid that a communist regime was then coming. So I understand when someone perceives that there's a misunderstanding, and with some of the verbalizations that were from people standing here, people may be uninformed. I don't think people need to hate those people or have a terrible feeling toward them. Maybe they're uninformed. Maybe people just need to be informed. Several people brought up the idea and the concern of cost within the county. Now, you all know about the budget of the county. I really don't know much about the budget of the county. I have seen it sometimes, but at times, but I really don't know it. So you know that there's apparently plenty of money. And again, Mr. Board Chairman, Mr. Smith, you said that there's that these people coming in can fend for themselves. And I've met them in the public. And they work and they take care of themselves and they have to prove that. And I give them a lot of credit because I certainly couldn't go to another country. I don't think I could do it. But when we have millages coming and average people, average income people, have to pay more and more and more, and there's more money coming towards us, towards taxes, people wonder about things. They just do. And I find it that with your grandfather coming, when he came here, which was a few years ago, I'm sure, I believe from stories I've heard that when he came, it may have been a different time then than when some people come now. And I'm not talking about the people possibly that Mr. Hackle was referring to. People then had a wanting to make things better as a whole, although probably not everybody. And as you suggestion, we're going to hear hateful statements.
1 minute.
I personally don't know that I heard a hateful statement. I heard people with what they perceived as fact to them. I didn't take anything hateful. And I've had people be hateful to me. So I'm sorry that you felt it was hateful. I think people are just people, and they do the best they can. I guess that's all that I'll say, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else to be heard?
Hi, I'm Steve Finn. I live in Warren. And now that the Second Amendment has been tabled in this meeting, I'd like to bring up that I'm for the Second Amendment. I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. But I think we can do better by our kids. I think we failed our kids, and they have to go through this routine of active shooter routines, and I think it's wrong. There will be laws that or amendments and things acted on about safe storage of guns, and I think this is where we can do better. I think people should be responsible for their guns and how they store them, so that their kids can't get at them. If you look at what happened in Newtown, Connecticut, that young man got a hold of his parents' rifles and killed a lot of people. And I think if we do better by our kids, we can stop a lot of this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Christy Hay, 62701 Crimson Road, Washington, Michigan. I just wanted to come up and thank you for tabling the Second Amendment resolution, and I wanted to, I had other statements prepared, but this seems more important to say in light of the news that I just read that Carmi handed to me. Commissioner Kleinfeld, you were right to say that, and I believe it was Commissioner Howe, that this is a very divisive year that we're coming up on. There are going to be a lot of hot button issues that we discuss. Common sense gun legislation will be one of them. Carmi just handed me that it appears that the governor of Virginia has declared a state of emergency after rhetoric has gotten so heated in Virginia that armed militias, there is credible threat of armed militias going to the Capitol. I'd like us to stand down from that. I'd like us not to bring up hot button things that don't have anything to do with the governing of Macomb County. I'd like us to step away from that kind of thing that could cause violence here, could cause anything. The false information that's out there about the immigration, the false information out there, and what people are saying that Moms is trying to take guns away from people. We're here to try and keep guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them, out of people who have been convicted for domestic violence, out of hands of people who are a threat to themselves or other people. That's what the legislation that we're proposing. My husband is an Air Force veteran. He grew up hunting. He got his first .30-06. We've got 2 in the house at age 16. He's a skilled shot. I've shot guns. We're not an anti-Second Amendment family. But we do, our kids have always, the guns have been locked up. The kids have shot guns. The kids know not to mess with guns. I'm not afraid of guns. I'm afraid of guns in the hands of the wrong people. And that's what we're here for. And I really do, Commissioner Kleinfeld saying that this isn't a topic for Macomb County. If this report, and I didn't take time to look at it, but it appears that if Virginia is at that place where they're declaring a state of emergency, that is a wise decision for you guys to step back from this topic, because it just doesn't have anything to do with how you govern our country, our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Name's Paul Driscoll. Again, I talked earlier. I just ask you to take a look at Europe and what's going on in Europe. Okay, the same thing's coming here. Okay, take a look at civilized jihad. Okay, that's coming here. All right. And again, all I'm trying to do is keep my religious freedom. All right, and for my family and my grandkids. So I'd ask you to do 2 things. Look at, if you have never seen Monumental, okay, it talks about how the Pilgrims fought for 12 years to get here, for one thing, religious freedom. All right, if you take a look at Europe, religious freedom is going away, okay? And then the second one, take a look at Agenda, the grinding down of America. Those 2 documentaries will show you where we are and how we got here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else from the public participation? Seeing no one, we'll close public participation.
Before we adjourn,
Yes.
I think we should wish Commissioner Kleinfeld happy birthday. Happy birthday. He was trying to sneak under the radar.
Thank you. I will tell you, I've been giving Phil a hard time the entire time we've been sitting here.
So, how many candles?
I don't want to talk about it.
16? 23. 23. Motion, Tuesday, swear by Tuesday.
I'm closer to 60 than I am 50.
I don't even know what that means.
Motion adjourned, thank you.